Hey Nathan, this is my video response to you. First off, let me just tell you, I am a big fan of your posts. I think you're an intelligent guy, and I like how you really lay out your ideas in ways that and structure them in ways that people who probably don't understand what these posts are supposed to be about. You really lay them out, and I think you really generate to generate more understanding. Maybe I hope. I mean, you can't help it sometimes. But I'd like to just first off, let's talk about all lives matter, blue lives matter. That's stupid. It is. I hate it. Predominantly white people don't understand. They really miss this point that it's different when the police interact with black people than when they interact with white people. And I'll take it a step further. It's different when you're a minority and you get an altercation with the police officer. Okay, things go differently. They might go one way with me because I look white than they would with um, a black person or a Hispanic person. Definitely Hispanic men, black men. I mean, I couldn't imagine living knowing that every time I got pulled over, I could potentially get shot. I feel like that already. I already feel like the police could shoot me at any moment. But I don't know what it would feel like to be black. Okay, I've been into some altercations with the police, and they're a scary bunch of guys who don't have too many regulations, and that's kind of scary, and also just kind of eyebrow raising a little bit. So I agree with you on that. Um, I liked your point about comparing and contrasting lives. Like I've already watched a couple posts already on this where they're like, "Well, I don't think white privilege is real because when I was 13, my mom died." That's silly. You grew up in a privilege that not a lot of people have. Who knows what their lives were like, right? You couldn't just judge a book by its cover. You know, you don't really know what someone's like adversity is till you've lived through it. But I it kind of bothers me too that people compare apples to oranges. Like, oh, my mom died, but so it's the same thing as growing up as a first generation American. So this is really what I'd like to talk about, though. Um, I think that white privilege doesn't exist, and I was intentionally trying to be divisive by writing that white privilege doesn't exist. I said I was a liberal and a registered Democrat, not because I just want to just brag about being a registered Democrat, especially in Kansas. Big bragging point around here. But I said that because I'm really getting fed up with this, and I think this kind of stuff weakens our party. Uh, I really do think this hurts us. Me, my party, all the Democrats. Um, I think people confuse privilege of being established in America as opposed to white privilege, right? Because I don't think white privilege is real. I don't. I really think it's silly. I think it's just some kind of silly crap to just, I don't know. It's like just the media just trying to pander to people who have bleeding hearts, you know? And so here, let me lay it out. I'm not trying to compare and contrast people's lives, but for all intentional purposes, let's just use. I would like to just lay out a timeline, and I think this is a pretty good argument, honestly. Um, we'll use my great grandparents. They immigrated here in the early 1900s, right, from Germany. One side of my family did. The other side were Native Americans. They were here the whole time, got their land taken away. We're not going to worry about them. We'll just focus on the Germans because I look white. My grandparents moved here early 1900s, lived in complete poverty, grew up in complete racism, lived through World War II in America during that. That is crazy. Can you imagine being a German during World War II in America? Could you imagine how much hate? Both my grandparents didn't speak English. They only spoke German. and they refused to speak English. They were very stubborn, and I don't have a problem with that. That was their decision. Like, I don't have a problem when Mexicans or Hispanic people don't want to speak English. I mean, that's their American right, and I respect that. Um, so they lived in the low class, right? They grew up in that. We'll go to my grandparents, the next generation. They lived and got out of the low class, right? They moved to the very bottom of the middle class. They both were not educated. They both had pretty much, they faced a lot of adversity. I mean, I just couldn't imagine, in all practical senses, them going to college, unless they got a scholarship or something. So they lived and died and worked and thrived in the very bottom of the middle class. Then we'll go to the next generation. My parents. Both my parents, each one of them, both of them were born into the lower middle class, worked their way up to the middle of the middle class, or the higher. I'd say they're probably higher middle class now because they're older and they're doing a lot better. But my parents, both of them were first college educated people in both of their families. I mean, that's a huge milestone in our family, going to college. It was a huge milestone. Now we'll go to me. Think of the privilege that I had when I grew up. I had two parents who were college educated, who had decent jobs, who provided everything I needed, all the necessities. I have no complaints about my childhood. I did not grow up in some kind of aristocratic, very well-off family. Okay, my parents, they struggled at times too, but I grew up had a great life. I had so many opportunities. World was mine, That took 3 generations, though. It took 3 different generations. So I think white privilege isn't real, in the fact that when you get established in America, it takes time, especially when you're an immigrant. We could contrast my wife's family. Both her parents are illegal immigrants right now. She wasn't born into that privilege. She didn't have that established. She didn't have that establishment, that structure, that base that I had. Okay, she's a first generation American. She graduated college. Our children, they're dark. 2 of them have dark skin. 1 of them doesn't have dark skin. The position they're in right now, I just don't see how that they have any less privilege than anyone else born in that similar circumstances. I think the circumstances, you can't argue the starting point, right? I mean, starting points aren't fair. I mean, think about it. If I was a Rothschild, I'd be born into a $1 billion family. I mean, I have adversity. I don't have adversity. I don't have that privilege of being a billionaire. I don't have the privilege of being a millionaire. I don't have the privilege of having $100,000 or things like that. Okay, I don't have that privilege. But I think that those are confusable things, and it makes sense, right? I think that it takes time to establish, generations, for normal people to establish. I'm not talking about billionaires. A billionaire from France could move to America. Boom, they're living the good life. What more do you need to say? It's economic disadvantage is different to me than white privilege. So I have a question that I'd like to ask you. Can you think of one thing, or tell me one thing, that a minority can't do that I, as a white man, can do? Thanks. Sorry for this video being so long.